kind of drive me nuts.
Okay, I can find it.
It'll come to us.
Okay. The W. Okay. It is so windy. It goes back really. Oh, I found it. You did? That won't move at all. Is it rocking now? Your posture can be nice. Yeah, when it went way back. So.
Nancy can't see it.
Welcome, everyone. This is the regular City Council meeting of Englewood, Tuesday, February 19th. Would you please stand for the invocation and a pledge of allegiance?
Father, please be with us now as we meet together. Inspire us in our thoughts and deliberations. Allow our decisions to be wise and practical. With your help, we will achieve success. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would the clerk take the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Member Sierra.
Present.
Member Barentine.
Here.
Member Cuesta.
Present.
Member Martinez.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Present.
Member Wink.
Present.
Mayor Olson.
Present.
All 7 present.
Thank you. Next agenda item is agenda item 5, consideration of minutes of the previous session. I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of February 4th, 2019. Could I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes of February 4th.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem, wait a minute. Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Barentine, but Mayor Pro Tem, I saw you hit your button, so I was, go ahead.
I would like a correction on the protest that I did on the executive session. It currently reads she felt. I believe that I officially protested the executive session, and I'd like it to reflect that it was an official protest of the executive session. And that the topic, as stated here, is to incorporate policy and law. And actually, I think that doesn't accurately reflect it. I tried to go back on the tape, but the tape does not exist. There was some technical difficulties, and so they're not there. But I went back on my notes, and the objection was that I believe that it was outside the stated purpose for the executive session, and that was to politicize counsel on behind closed doors regarding an interpretation of law and to advocate for legislation. That's the protest. So if we could take that I felt out and put it as an official protest, and then I'm protesting it for that, and if the clerk would like, I'd be more than happy to write it up, or if anybody wants a further explanation.
City Clerk, is there any response from you? Is that an accurate?
I read back what was said that evening to clarify, and I had it written in my notes. So that is what Ms. Barentine just stated was not the motion that we heard, and we never heard the word official protest. And there is a process, a formal process that needs to be done to actually protest in executive session.
What is, for what
So
I
she
said
just
at the end?
wanted-
Oh, I apologize, I thought she was done.
So it was my understanding that evening that she wanted, it reflected in the minutes that what was conducted in an executive session also had to do with policy and law. So that is what was reflected. Again, there's a formal process that needs to be done if there is a protest made to an executive session. So I'm happy to forward out that information again. I don't know what to do about the reflection of the minutes. So I reflected what happened that evening.
Okay. So you're asking for words to be changed or that it to be officially said that it's a protest? You don't think that that's already warranted, that's already shown here in some way?
What you say after an executive session is that if anybody wishes to protest, the meeting believes that it went beyond the scope of the executive session to protest it for the record. That is exactly what I did. There is no other format that I am aware of to protest an executive session coming out except for what the mayor reads after the meeting, and that's exactly what I did. Then I made a clarification and asked that my protest be presented in the minutes, because in the past that has been a problem. I was assured that it would be reflected in the minutes as a protest of the executive session,
Right.
which is the verbiage that's being used when
you.
you read it.
Could we change it to she believed that the executive session went outside, and then she's stating a protest with these statements? And then there is a formal process that you can get information to Councilmember Barentine on so that she can take next steps.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I'd be happy to
Mayor,
do that.
that's a separate process.
Right.
To protest the executive session, and what the clerk, I believe, is bringing up is a separate process. What you read at the end of it is that any wishes to protest the meeting, because the executive session, because it went outside the scope. That's exactly what I did.
So could we have it read, Councilmember Barentine stated an objection in protest to the executive session?
And I want and the verbiage that I read, that why I was protesting it. I have the right to do that.
Because she believed the executive session went outside the scope of the security topic as stated in the to incorporate policy and law.
I believe it went outside of the stated purpose of the executive session to politicize council behind closed doors regarding an interpretation of law and to advocate for legislation. My notes for what I said was for ordinances and to interpret law. I went to listen to the meeting. There is no tape of the protest.
All right, Councilmember Barentine, you're just going over what you've already told us.
That's true, but there was...
Right, you've just stated that, so let's figure out a way through this. Let's get some verbiage that you
If
can
she would
agree with.
like to forward me the verbiage she would like reflected in the minutes, then I can amend those if that is appropriate for council.
All right, council, are you willing to do that? Approve this meeting based on forwarded information that she will give?
May I ask for one other thing, please? Could the verbiage that you read at the end be included prior to my protest so that people understand what the protest is?
The information that I just read?
No, the information that you read after an executive session, when you come back in and you read that if anybody believes that it went outside that scope, that they can protest it for the record, and that precede my protest, that would be, I think, more understandable.
All right. Councilmember Wink, I'm going to let you speak.
Thanks. Mayor, Member Barentine has the right to have her words recorded accurately, and I am absolutely in favor of ensuring that we have recorded exactly the words that Member Barentine stated on that date. I think to amend language is not what we're here for, but I think we should ensure that based on our recording, what she said is recorded as such, so.
All right.
Unfortunately, we don't have the recording.
There is no recording at all.
Correct.
People heard it.
Yes.
Right.
People, but it didn't record
And
while it was being heard.
I feel like I read it back, but again, I'm happy to do what I need to do. I thought I captured verbatim what she was looking for. So if we want to submit the language, and if you would like for me to amend it, then I'm happy to do
Yes,
that.
I am fine to put in that she protested the executive session, and if there's some verbiage that she wants to proclaim with that, we're at a point where it's he said, she said, we just need to take what she wants. I'm fine with affirming that. Does council agree with that? Any objections to that, please light up your light. All right, so with that,
Councilmember Barentine, could you submit that to me, please? I want to make sure that I have it.
I will submit it through the mayor.
okay, great. Mayor Pro Tem?
I just have a question about, since the actual video is the legal minutes, what do we do when we have a defective tape?
Let's talk about that at the council member's choice tonight.
Okay.
Because that won't help us get
That's
through
fine.
this.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so with those statements being amended and submitted via me to the city clerk, would you approve this? Please vote.
Madam Mayor,
Oh, we can't?
you can't approve minutes when you don't know exactly what's going to go in them. Councilmember Barentine has said she'll submit something to you and that you'll submit it back to the city manager, and the city manager will submit it to the clerk. You can't approve minutes unless you know exactly what's in there. There's been language about protest, and nowhere in our script is the word protest used. At one point, it does say that you can state your concerns for the record. We're not sure exactly what this language is, and I think you're going to have to bring your minutes back for approval at a future meeting.
So do we vote on this as a vote to table it?
Vote to table to a future meeting.
All right, do I need a motion to do that then? Yes. Councilmember Martinez had a...
I move to table the approval of the minutes from the regular city council meeting, February 4th, until our next regular council meeting.
I'll second that
All right,
motion.
please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show. 7 ayes.
Thank you. Moving on to council agenda item 6, this is recognition of scheduled public comment. The deadline to sign up to speak for scheduled comment is Wednesday by 5 p.m. prior to the meeting through the city clerk's office. Only those who meet the deadline can speak in this section. This is an opportunity for the public to address the city council. There's an expectation that the presentation be conducted in a respectful manner. That means following the council-approved decorum. Council may ask questions for clarification, but there will not be any dialogue. Please limit your presentation to 5 minutes. Written materials for presentation to council may be submitted to the city clerk as the speaker approaches the podium, and a USB port is available for public presentation. First up tonight is Olivia Casa-Monday, an Englewood resident, here to address council regarding Friends of Englewood Parks.
Kate Truesdale. I'm coming up second, but we'd like to address you together.
Thank you, and please state your names and your addresses. Thank you.
Kate Truesdale. I live at 1571 East Bates Avenue, Englewood 80113.
Olivia Monday, 2958 South Lincoln Street, Inglewood, Colorado. Thank you for having us here today. We represent the Friends of Parks of Englewood.
Could you pull the microphone up to you so everyone can hear well?
Yeah, we've been trying to ask the council if you can help us to find a way that we can put like on the ballot something to help to bring more funding for the parks. When we came here in the past, we had to do like a study about like what was the best solution, and 3 that they gave it, we got back from, it was like to raise fund for improvements in a tax like a bond or a tax or something that we can add to home taxes or the sales taxes, and other and not do nothing and trying to find if there's some budgeting still around, but no, that's, there's not much available. And then, or we can try to merge or contact the South Suburban, neighborhoods, because they have a really good programs, and we find, figure out that there is some extra.
So we had a meeting on Saturday with the Friends of Englewood Parks, and we're a growing group. There's 10 of us at the meeting on Saturday, so I think it definitely demonstrates the citizens' interest to find some funding for the parks, specifically the items that were laid out in the 2017 master plan. So I would like to thank Councilman Sierra, because I know that he has already put in a request to the Parks and Rec Department to research and identify some of the best options to fund these improvements. So I think we're here tonight to ask council to, once we determine what the best funding way would be for the parks, is to support this and put the initiative on the 2019 ballot.
And we're also willing to go around if he needs it to get signature, like our group already talked. That once we found what's the solution, we're willing to go home to home and, pick up the signature necessary to put on the ballot.
Yeah, we've started to discuss a strategy around what that would look like. So definitely some door-to-door canvassing, spreading information to the neighborhood, maybe being able to set up a table at an event like the block party, different things like that. But we want you to understand that if this initiative does get put on the ballot, we will take the full responsibility of informing citizens and getting it passed. So I think that's good.
Yeah.
I guess the last thing that I just really want to say is that the Friends of Englewood Parks believes that Englewood is a really special place, and there's a lot of love and pride for our community, and we believe that the parks are the front yard to our neighborhood, and we would like them to represent that love and community that we are so passionate about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It looks like we have one question here from Councilmember Wink.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your love and passion for Englewood. I share that as well. Just a matter of curiosity, how frequently does the group Friends of Englewood meet?
We're usually once a month.
Once a month, yeah.
Once a month.
Yeah, so our next meeting is going to be on Saturday, March 16th, and we're going to be meeting at the Brew on Broadway. Nope, that's backwards. The Brew on Broadway, the Bob. So we would like to invite anybody who would like to join us and learn more about what we're trying to do to join us. And you can also visit the Facebook page, Friends of Englewood Parks, for more information.
Perfect. And what time is that meeting at
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. on the 16th of March.
Yep. Yeah.
At the Brew on Broadway.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then also, I just wanted to bring up one more thing, if you don't mind. I think I still have a little bit of time. But I'm also a Parks and Rec Commissioner and the chair of the Off-Leash Dog Park Subcommittee. I'm not sure if you guys know that we formed, but we formed as a result of getting numerous complaints about dogs in the parks and people kind of just taking advantage of the rules that we've laid out and the privilege of it. So I wanted to introduce this to you tonight, because I have a feeling that in the next few months we'll probably be coming back to you with some more formal requests on behalf of the Off-Leash Dog Park Subcommittee, as well as Englewood Unleashed. We've been partnering with them to come up with some ideas and solutions. So hopefully I'll be seeing you again soon. And if you have any questions about that, just let me know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next is Ms. Kathleen Bailey, an Englewood resident, here to address council regarding the 1999 storm drainage infrastructure study.
Honorable Mayor, council members, tonight I will use the 1999 outfall system study to completely refute our Public Works Director DeAndrea's false and dangerously misleading claim that Englewood storm drainage infrastructure is already built to handle a typical 2 to 5 year rainfall event. The 1999 study focused on 18 Englewood basins across the city of Englewood. Pages 20 through 27 of that report addresses each of the 18 basins and identifies each of their current capacity relative to handling a typical 2 to 5 year rainfall event, and also lays out detailed infrastructure options and the associated costs to correct the identified inadequacies. My high tech production of the map currently on display involved a box of colored
City
pencils
Clerk,
from-
can you make sure the time is started? Thank you. Sorry, keep going. We're reading along. You got more time.
Okay. Involved a box of colored pencils from Hobby Lobby and a magnifying glass and a copy of the map from Appendix B of the 1999 report laying out each of those 18 basins. The basins identified as adequate to handle a typical 2 to 5 year rainfall event are colored green. The basins identified as adequate only to handle a 2-year rainfall event are colored orange. And the basins identified as not adequate to handle either a 2 to 5 year rainfall event are colored red. Contrary to Director Andrea's false claim, out of those 18 basins, only 5 small basins were identified as adequate to handle a typical 2 to 5 year rainfall event. As seen in green on the map, those 5 basins are the Evans Avenue Basin, Northwest Englewood Basin, the North Englewood Basin, Jefferson Basin, and Bannock Basin. 6 of the 18 basins were identified as adequate to handle only a 2-year rainfall event, as seen in orange on the map. Those 6 basins are the East Hampden Basin, Sherman Street Basin, High School Basin, South Central Englewood Basin, South Englewood Basin, and Filtration Plant Basin. And 7 of the 18 basins were identified as not adequate to handle either a 2 to 5 year rainfall event. As seen in red on the map, those 7 basins are the College View Basin, Yale Avenue Basin, Northeast Englewood Basin, Central Englewood Basin, Broadway Basin, Federal Boulevard Basin, and Bomar Basin. The substantial presence of large swaths of red and orange on that map and very little green, I hope fully reveals to all of you the serious nature of Director Andrea's false and dangerously misleading claim that risks the health and safety of Englewood citizens. And I want to know what my governing council intends to do about it. Director Andrea sold the floodproofing program as an added layer of protection on top of what she has falsely declared to be infrastructure already built to handle a typical 2 to 5 year rainfall event. If you still go forward with creating the floodproofing program with an existing base infrastructure that is dangerously inadequate, the program's existence will solely serve to reduce liability for the city while transferring the bulk of the responsibility and the costs of protection from flooding off the city and onto the Englewood citizens themselves, which is what I believe was the actual intended goal all along. Englewood staff are fully aware that the average Englewood citizen does not have the funds required to effectively floodproof their homes to begin with, let alone wait for a partial refund of the citizens' upfront costs. So the costs to the city will be minimal, or to borrow Director DeAndrea's expression, the biggest bang for Englewood's buck, while citizens will remain vulnerable to deadly destructive flooding due to severely inadequate infrastructure. Please just get to work on getting our infrastructure built up to the capacity to actually handle a typical 2 to 5 year rainfall event rather than pretend it already exists. And as a side note, I wondered if any of you actually read DeAndrea and Calibre's current floodproofing product. For example, I was not familiar with Calibre's scientific terminology of walk-by site visit, where they eyeballed homes from the street to identify and categorize property risk and life safety risk for those homes. Per DeAndrea's 211 letter, each house was visited, walk-by site visit, and categorized. Property risk and life safety risk elements were noted if visible from the street or alley. The scope of the study did not include detailed on-site inspection of the interior of each lot or the interior of each home, so conclusions were limited to what was visible from the streets and alleys. And now, Calibre and DeAndre are asking citizens to pay an additional $17,000 to expand their walk-by site visit area to identify a few additional homes in order to encourage the property owners to flood-proof them. What am I missing that you have no problem with this? So again, please just get to work and get our infrastructure built up to the capacity to actually handle a typical 2 to 5 year rainfall event rather than pretend it already exists. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Ms. Vicki Hoffmann, here to address council regarding drainage.
Can you stop it for a minute so I can tell him my name? Good evening, Council. Vicki Hoffmann, 4630 South Bannock Street.
Ms. Hoffman, you're finished, right? Thank you. Next is Mr. Joe Anderson, an Englewood resident. Oh, I'm sorry. We had Ms. C. Ann Dickerson, an Englewood resident, is not here, but instead, I believe that Mr. J.J. Margiotta wants to move from unscheduled to scheduled, here to speak about the incompetence of City Council.
Good evening, Council. My name is J.J. Margiotta. I live at 29 East Radcliffe Avenue. I've come before you this evening again to enlighten the citizens of the lovely Englewood and let them know what's really going on. So please take a few moments and watch this video. Dickerson, Illinois is a town of 16,000 people, and they lost $53 million due to their lack of oversight from their city council and mayor. They had hired an outside accounting firm, Clifton Larson, to audit their books for years, thinking they were doing the right thing. What do you think the chances are that the city of Englewood has just hired the same accounting firm to audit Eve and Murph? That's right, you guys just hired them. The people you just approved for the audit. Luckily, Dickerson, Illinois was able to recover $35 million as part of their settlement from that same exact accounting firm. You can see it on the flyer I just handed out to each and every one of you. The U.S. Attorney said on the video, "Trust as they must, but verify." But as far as they can tell, there was no verification there. And still to date, you do not do your job. And this is exactly how City of Englewood works. Which brings me back to the fact that the interim city manager and the city attorney have colluded in hiding the fact that they have misappropriated $28,000 in funds without you, City Council's approval, in violation of Title 4-1-3-1. The city manager cannot spend more than $25,000 without prior City Council approval. At this point in time, at what point in time is City Council going to start to hold its employees accountable for breaking our laws and misappropriation of funds? Do we have to lose $53 million? It's time for you to step up and do the job and get people to actually look at what they're doing. You just hired the same accounting firm that let $53 million slip through their fingers. For those people here, you should probably watch a movie that is called All the Queen's Horses. I'm sure they will see a lot of similarities between our city of Englewood and the city of Dickerson. Maintenance that's not done. A city on the edge, just like ours, that can't afford to fix simple infrastructure problems like drains, but we can afford to spend almost $200,000 on a study that actually has helped nobody, yet this people cannot actually speak to the people that did the study when they walk around in inspected houses, but not one hydraulic line was checked? It's pretty pathetic. And I have to say, it's time for you, City Council, you, Mayor Olson, to start to step up and do the job correctly. Thank you.
There are no questions. Next up is Mr. Joe Anderson, an Englewood resident, here to address council. No topic given.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Joe Anderson, 4061 South Cherokee Street. Thank you for your service to our city and thank you for your time. If you're wondering if there are people out there that are never going to be happy, believe it, it's true. There's always going to be angry citizens. And I want to just encourage you guys. I know you sit up here and endure a lot week after week, and I appreciate that you're going through that, and I'm not. But I know it's tough, and I appreciate your faithfulness to our city. I want to talk a bit about the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee, just a little bit. Our municipal codes were designed to help neighbors know how to love each other and provide a standard of accountability and promote good neighboring relationships in our city. That's what Jesus said the whole Old Testament law was for, is that the law is there so that all the law can be summed up in the two commands, to love God and to love your neighbor. And I think that's true as well of our municipal codes, especially when it comes to the loving our neighbor part. What we have right now is several on the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee that have decided to weaponize the codes against their neighbors. And the results are devastating to our neighborhoods. And I know you guys need to deal with that, but I want to kind of go a different direction tonight. I want to figure out ways that we can bring positive encouragement to our neighbors to figure out how we can develop and foster better relationships within our neighbors. I want to offer an alternative approach to just enforcing the codes harder. And the approach that I'm going to suggest here will actually reduce our burden on code enforcement, possibly other services, could reduce crime, and it will cost the city very close to nothing. In 2013, the city of Arvada, the assistant city manager at the time, Vicki Ryer, worked with Dave Runyon, who's a leader in their pastors network up there, to do a citywide initiative to help their neighbors get to know each other. And what they did was Dave Runyon worked with the churches and had the churches do a coordinated sermon series, tell stories about neighboring, throw block parties, while the city did two things. They helped encourage block parties and provided a grant program for that, which nobody really ever took the city up on. They just decided, oh, if we're throwing parties, we'll do it without taking the money. So it ended up not costing the city really anything at all. But the other thing they did was they printed a little block map on the back of their newsletter that had a little diagram of a person's house with the 8 closest houses around it, the 3 across the street, 3 behind, and the 2 on either side. They attached that to the back of the newsletter, and they encouraged their citizens to get to know their 8 closest neighbors' first names. That was the extent of it. Get to know their first names, cut this little block map out, stick it on your fridge, and write their names, and know their names and remember them, and start calling your neighbors by name. And they did it. Arvada started to get to know their neighbors. There were more block parties. They were helping their needy neighbors shovel their walks. They were bringing meals to each other. And the whole tenor of their neighborhood started to change. And in fact, when they went back after the fact and looked at the numbers, it turned out that code enforcement calls had dropped dramatically over the previous years. Now, that wasn't a scientific study. There were possibly other factors involved. But there have been scientific studies on this. Professor Robert Putnam at Harvard has written a book called Bowling Alone, in which he studies social fabric and how communities are knit together. And one of the things that conclusions that he clearly came to in there is that neighbors who know each other's names have neighborhoods who have good social fabric in that way have a reduced amount of crime. It's just better social fabric, better neighborhoods, lower crime, and less services necessary for serving the city. So I know that you have to do something about code enforcement, but I want to encourage you to look at the bigger picture. How can we foster good neighboring in the city of Englewood? If you're interested in this idea, doing something similar to what Arvada did, I'd be happy to help in any way I can. I already talked to Tony Arnaldi. She loves the idea. She loves anything neighboring, so she loves the idea. I'm sure we can move the ball forward on this if you're interested. If you want to hear from some people in Arvada, whether it's staff or whether you guys want to hear from them, I'd be happy to invite them down. I know I've met the people up there who did that effort, and so I'm excited about it. I hope this is something we can do, or something similar. I know we already have some good neighboring stuff going, but I think if we can encourage people to get to know their neighbors by their first name, we will see some cool things happen in Englewood. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions for you, but thank you.
Yeah.
Next up is Mr. Doug Cohn, an Englewood resident, here to address us regarding historic preservation.
Good evening. Doug Cohn, 3051 South Marion Street. I came to extend an invitation next Monday, the 25th, at 2:30 in the afternoon, here at the old Newsteaders store, for those of you who are old enough to remember Newsteaders, across the hall at Hampton Hall, we're going to have a virtual tour of the original Cinderella City. Josh Goldstein has found 1 million pictures, and we're going to tour the halls, all 4 malls, including Cinder Alley in the basement. A bunch of you guys will have no idea what I'm talking about, but there might be a few people out here in the audience who remember Cinderella City. So 2:30 in the afternoon here, and then in the evening 6:30 over at the Brew on Broadway. And it's a free event, and this is an invitation to come and join us. I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. Our next item agenda is the recognition of unscheduled public comment, and the same comments that I made earlier are true. To speak in this section, you sign up as you come in the door, and these folks are allowed 3 minutes. So first up tonight is Mr. Mike Jones, here to speak about competency.
Good evening, Council. Mike Jones, 4851 South Pennsylvania Street. Thanks for that, Doug. It's interesting. I actually got to give a lot of input to this project that's going to go on with regards to Cinderella City. My parents actually had a store in Cinderella City for a number of years, and so I provided a lot of pictures for Josh in this effort. Anyway, it's interesting that I didn't even plan this, but everything that's happened so far this evening is an interesting segue into what I'm going to talk about. So a couple of things have come into light in the past several weeks that I believe should be of concern to council and are definitely a concern to the citizens of Englewood. The first is the continued issue regarding the audio quality with regards to study sessions in particular, and apparently we had some issues tonight as well. For whatever reason, this has become an issue over the past recent months. Most of the original issue, I believe, was merely that we had council members who may not have been placing the mics in the correct position when speaking. We experienced council members that were speaking adequately, and we could hear them just fine online. However, someone in their infinite wisdom determined that the mics needed to be replaced, and this would solve the issue. Apparently, someone didn't do their due diligence to figure out what the real problem was. Anyone that knows anything about audio could tell you that the mics weren't the issue. I'm not sure how much money was allocated towards that expenditure, but it was a waste in my opinion. This statement was confirmed as the result of the audio issues that continued to plague the study session last week with the new mics. Running the audio for the meeting isn't rocket science, and rather than blaming the technology, you as council should insist that those responsible for doing the audio service for you perform a root cause analysis so that you can determine what the issue really is based on a report. And at that time, you can determine what the appropriate solution for that problem is rather than taking a stab in the dark. So the second issue that I want to address real quickly is with regards to the audits for EAF, and that has been brought up this evening as well. In my effort to hear what council said on the topic during the last study session, and I didn't hear much due to the audio issues, I believe that I heard council pass the buck on the type of audit that would be performed to the actual entity that would be selected as part of the RFP that went out. If this is so, who in their right mind would engage in spending money in this manner? We're already seeing the disaster that the flood report turned out to be, And now we're handling EAF and the RFP associated with that in the same manner. Not only is this a crazy way to run the city, it's a crazy way to run anything. In what business would you send out an RFP and not give clear requirements to the individuals or companies that you're requesting to perform the required statement of work back to you with? It should not happen. The citizens will hold council accountable for poor management of this city. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions for you. Next is Mr. Chris Dewis. No topic given.
Chris Dewis, 4884 South Lincoln. I made a video a few weeks ago about the trash in my alley and around the city of Englewood. Code enforcement did come out and address a few of the issues. The other issues, they turned over to community development. So I waited a few weeks and I went to community development to ask them if they came out and assessed the situation. They said they had not. There's bigger issues here tonight, and so I didn't really write a statement, but I've been living in my house for the last 40 years and watched Englewood slowly deteriorate as far as people upkeeping their homes because of code enforcement. Code enforcement used to go around and tell people to mow their lawn or pick their weeds and stuff, but now the alleys and the neighborhoods are just getting a lot worse. So I hope we can do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dewis. No questions for you. Next up is Mr. Jerry Walker, here to speak about metal detection at the door.
Jerry Walker, 4180 South Pearl Street, Englewood, Colorado. And I think we need to take up a collection tonight for glasses, because I think we have a vision problem here. It seems that reading a code to someone and actually writing down the code is two different things. The code that deals with our metal detector out here says that we can't carry through a concealed weapon by showing our concealed carry card. However, in the report, the police department writes down, security personnel and electronic weapon screening devices are permanently in place. And they put 3 periods behind it because they forget to use the rest of the sentence. And I guess the rest of the sentence doesn't mean much, except the rest of the sentence says, devices are permanently in place at each entrance to the building. Now, I know we have a city lawyer over there, and I know we have a number of people who work here. And I looked at all the entrances of the building tonight, and I did not see a metal detector. So I do believe that someone has illegally modified a Colorado revised statute for their personal agenda. Next thing I have here is for Mr. Sierra. Mr. Sierra, did you get the email on Englewood Municipal Code, Title 15, where it says that after inspecting the property on which nuisance is reported and enforced personnel who are charged or designated by the city manager with investigation are going to use photographs and or videotapes and written reports and findings shall be generated. There's also a Colorado revised statute that says we can videotape the police at any time. Now, if you didn't get the email, send me an email. I'd be glad to write these for you. If I need to get them in larger letters, by all means. The last thing is that the minutes are the minutes. There are no minutes of Linda Olson citing or using the specific designation of a executive session, and those are the minutes. She did one that wasn't approved. She did not one. So according to 24-7-203 I and II of the Colorado revised statutes, that was not a proper executive session. It was an illegal closed meeting. That is in the statutes. And being an illegal closed meeting it now becomes a matter of public record. You have my Colorado open request as of last week for the minutes of that particular meeting, and I can only tell you that I do know what an in-camera review is by a district judge. And if I'm not provided with what I asked for that's done illegally, that's my next step. Any questions?
There are none. Next up is Mr.
No surprise.
Ms. Tammy Williamson, here to speak about short-term rentals.
Tammy Williamson, 4198 South Washington, and I'm here again to talk about Mr. Brad Scully and his illegal party house. I did forward to you what I found on his new scheme of separating his top floor of his house into apartments while keeping the main floor and basement into his Airbnb party house. He is under the impression that we only know about his Airbnb listing. He doesn't know that I know about his VRBO listing, which, surprise, is still listed as a party house. Please come have your parties and events here. And his new listings, he's trying to get away with what he's doing by renting to traveling nurses. I don't care if it's a bus full of nuns with puppies, he cannot have apartments in R1C. And the good news is you guys can finally do something about it because I read the fine print on these websites. If you go to the website, send them a letter stating that his property, his rentals are not allowed in this district, in this R1C district, strictly one family per lot, they are obligated to remove the listing from their websites. You guys can do this. You don't have to be held back by zoning or Ms. Loophole over there. You can do it yourself. And I will give you all the information you need. I will email you the fine print on there and who to email. And all you have to say is, this listing here is not legal. We don't allow it in our city, and could you please remove it? Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell has a question for you.
Okay. So will you email that information to
I
City
will.
Council?
I'll even stay and show it to you. I have
Okay.
it all right here. I'll wait.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Ms. Janice Brown, here to speak about case.
Hello, Janice Brown, 3808 South Elati. Citizens Alliance for Sustainable Englewood has two potential educational projects in the near future. The first is a Depot Park pollinator garden using plants that need little water and that attract pollinators. It would educate both children and adults about the importance of pollinators. Second potential project is an organic turf building. It would be a 3-year pilot program to replace chemical and synthetic lawn applications with organic materials. This project would require 2 separate parks, training for our parks groundskeepers, and funding, most of which is available through corporate sponsorship. The goal is to replace chemicals that cause endocrine disruption, cancers, and birth defects, and to instead use organic materials that promote the beneficial microbes that help to grow healthy trees, shrubs, and lawns. The first step of this process is soil testing to determine what our soils need to grow healthy microbes. Organic product comes in 2 forms, liquid and granules. The cost of starting an organic turf building is expensive to buy not only the product but also the equipment for application. But as I mentioned, corporate sponsorship is available, and as time goes by, organic turf building becomes less expensive, ultimately paying for itself. The majority of the chemicals in our environment are not used by Englewood Parks and Recreation, but by agriculture and private homeowners. We would use this project as a way to educate the community about chemical products versus organic products. On February 7th, the conference was held in the library with a few parks and recreation people and an organic horticulturist. The groundkeepers seemed very receptive to this project, as does Dave Lee, who is the director of Parks and Rec. I have already met with KEB and the Parks and Rec Commission to introduce this project. Ultimately, this program would be a national recognition of the city of Englewood. I bring this information to you as a response to City Council request, and no action from the City Council is being sought at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Ms. Christine Brinker, here to speak about trash.
Hi, Christine Brinker, 3046 South Washington Street in Englewood. I'm not a regular here, and in fact, I've never been here before. I'm just someone who lives here and cares very much about Englewood. I have heard that the city in the future might be considering some options for improving our trash service, including the possibility of putting out a competitive open RFP for a single hauler. I think this is a great opportunity for the city to pursue. My trash company is fine. I don't love them. I don't hate them. But what I do hate is hearing some 12, 13, 14 huge trash trucks a day every Tuesday and Wednesday going down our alleys and streets, tearing up the alleys and streets, spewing out diesel fumes, blowing up dust, causing potholes. And who pays for that? We do. We pay for that in our tax dollars. We subsidize that through our tax dollars and through our own health. I think it's interesting that people in Highlands Ranch and people in Denver agree on practically nothing, and yet what they do agree on is having a single hauler for their trash service. I know it would take a lot of guts for the city to make a change like that, but it would be worth it. Lower bills, better reliability, higher quality service, quieter streets, less road and alley maintenance, healthier kids. I have a little 7-year-old and I care very much about her little pair of lungs, and I know that all of you do too. All worth it. You could do it in a way that would address the majority of concerns about changing this approach, and I know you'll hear a lot of vocal concerns about it. A competitive and open RFP process would unleash the power of the free market to give us a really low bid. You can put in some performance standards into the contract and into the RFP so we can be assured of high quality, probably higher quality than we have now. And you can even offer an opt-out option for people that are completely opposed to the idea, but I don't know who wouldn't want lower bills and better quality service. So I hope you'll consider taking the plunge, making that change, making things just that much better for Englewood families like mine. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Colin Haggerty, I believe, here to speak about alley paving.
Hello, Colin Haggerty, 3013 South Ogden Street. Just actually moved in not that long ago and was surprised to see that all of our alleyways are not paved here. There's some challenges with that. There's some benefits to that. We've heard about flooding. We've heard about water quality. Well, we've heard about flooding issues, and paving can create higher flooding issues, but it actually provides an opportunity too. If we actually look at doing a better way of paving our alleys, perhaps it can be a benefit to everybody by providing water quality within those alleyways. I know we have a program, or at least from what I've read, we have a program that we're looking at 2 alleyways a year or something like that, which isn't very much, but maybe we could utilize some of those funds to provide a better overall system that would actually reduce runoff, reduce water quality issues, because I do believe there are significant water quality issues with having dirt runoff. It's probably clogging a lot of our systems. It's causing higher maintenance costs, higher overall costs. And so if we provided a system that would actually reduce runoff, reduce debris coming off of our alleyways, I think it could actually benefit, everybody here and maybe help solve a lot of the problems that we're all having with our infrastructure being wholly sized too small. So we'd just like to put out an idea of maybe looking at some of the options. The city of Chicago has done a lot of green infrastructure in all of their alleyways. It's a huge program that they have out there. I believe Baltimore also has. So there's a lot of things that the city of Denver is doing for water quality, looking at different options too. I am an engineer by trade. I work in water. I'd love to be a source of information if we can, but really just want to try to figure out how we can fix our alleyways, also help our flooding improvements and everything else with this city. But happy to be here. Thank you all for your efforts, and good luck.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda item 7, and it's our new custom to have one council member respond to public comment, particularly looking for council requests that we might gather to take action on. And if Councilmember Barentine doesn't mind doing it tonight, I would appreciate it. Just kind of going down the dice for the next month, so everybody keep track.
To Janice Brown, thank you very much for representing Case here with the issues that you're dealing with the city and your follow-up on the meeting. Hope that you continue to come and provide a follow-up on that. To the Friends of Englewood, really appreciate that you guys are meeting. I wrote down that the meeting was on 2/16, and that can't be. It was March 10th. So I wanted to correct that. Pardon?
We'll get it out there for you.
Okay. March 16th, so the wrong month, but the right day. And so if we can get that information up so that if anybody here is interested in attending that, whether you agree with how we get there, it would be nice to have the discussion and have some more people participating in that. Doug, greatly appreciate your historical, as always, and it's nice to remember we are in Cinderella City, so it'd be interesting to see. I also, since you turned around to the audience, did not hear that meeting as well, so I hope you provide the date and time for that, because then we couldn't hear when you were doing that piece of it. Mike Jones, I appreciate that you brought the issue up. I think our staff is working very hard to try to correct the issues. You are correct, they were not just microphone issues. There were some other things that happened as well. We haven't been apprised of all of them. It's unfortunate that it happened in consecutive meetings like that. I don't want to get conspiratorial on it. I think they're working very hard to try to resolve the issues. We are using currently in this study session old mics that we had used before. Oh, there you are, Mike. So we're using old mics that we had. So as far as I know, no additional money has been spent, but we will, I guess we'll do a council request to see if there has. Apparently there's been some conversation out there that there was some new mics that were going to be purchased. I don't believe that that's happened, but if that's in way, then we could put a council request to find out whether that's going to happen, or she can address that. To Joe Anderson, I appreciate your bringing, and you're generally pretty positive, and I appreciate your bringing a positive message about what Arvada did. I know all of my neighbors and their names, so most of us do. I think we hear a lot about that during the boards and commissions, that neighborhood community feel. And I don't want to diminish that positive message that you were bringing, because I don't think you intended to diminish the concerns of your fellow citizens in this community. What they are concerned about and what they're bringing forward, I don't think you meant to diminish that as if they're just complaining. They are very serious issues and very near and dear to their hearts as well. And to that point, Kathleen Bailey, as usual, did a beautiful job on her report. I greatly appreciate anytime somebody spends that kind of time and effort to go through the 1995 flood information and put it with their perspective on what's going on today. And we all get to look at things through a different lens. And with that, Vicki Hoffmann brought to light that report in that movie and brought that problem very to the very heart of this community and what we lost and what we're facing potentially. Hopefully we will be discussing this on the 25th as we set our priorities, and they will be a little different than they were May a year ago because of what happened last summer. So I'm sure that you'll be part of that discussion, listen to that, and I look forward to your feedback. JJ, Tam Williams, and Chris Dewis, as I put that together because I believe that there's a consistent theme here. We have to follow our laws, and when they are not followed, we have to enforce them. We have to have accountability to what we do, whether it's following the code enforcement and making sure that we hold people accountable to the code enforcement that would have helped the flood as well with some of that issue, for your issue in the alley. But this council and this city has an obligation to follow the laws and our ordinances. And when we put forward that we have limits on purchases, then we need to hold everybody accountable. And it's happened. And we said we were sorry, and we said we wouldn't do it again, and then we keep having it happen. So I'm sure it's something that this council is going to be discussing. It has to stop, and we have to hold ourselves accountable as we hold the citizens accountable. And that was all that I had. Thank you very much for coming, all of you.
Next up is our agenda item 8, which we have nothing under, and agenda number 9 is consent agenda items. Are there any consent agenda items that anyone wants to pull tonight? Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
I would like to pull 9C1.
All right. Is there a motion to approve 9A?
I move to approve 9A.
And a second?
A second.
Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
All right. Agenda 9C1 is the Meadow Creek flume replacement and telemetry installation. Utilities Director Tom Brennan is here to answer questions.
Good evening.
Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
The one question that I had, and I did call interim city manager Hargrove and asked her this question. On the financial implications, it says the flume replacement and telemetry installation has a cost of $134,087. The city is responsible for 45% of the project, that is $60,339.15, and Climax is responsible for 55%, or $73,747.85. And then it says staff recommends council approval of the invoice from Denver Water for the flume replacement and telemetry installation in the amount of $134,087. So it was just, to me, a little bit confusing. Do we only owe $60,000 because all of the other supporting document was $134,000?
Yes. What it does is Denver invoices us for the full amount. We invoice Climax, and then with that we reimburse Denver.
Okay.
So Denver sends one bill.
All right, thank you. I mean, I figured it was pretty simple, so.
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't clarify that in the council communication.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, could I have a motion to approve 9A1?
I move to approve 9C1.
I mean, 9C, sorry, 9C1.
Second.
All right, please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
We have no public hearings tonight, so we go on to agenda item 11, ordinances, resolutions, and motions. First is 11A1, CB6, standard definitions. Staff recommends council approve a bill for an ordinance to approve standard definitions. Staff Finance and Administrative Services Director Maria Sabata is here to answer questions.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. As the Mayor mentioned, I'm here to ask for the approval of Council Bill number 6, the standard definition ordinance. We had our final study session last week talking about or following up on the November 26th study session, and I believe we answered all of the questions that you had, but I will leave it open to more if you have them.
Right, further questions for our staff member? Seeing none, could I have a motion to then lead a discussion?
I move to approve 11A1 CB6 standard definitions.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Councilmember discussion? Any further comments about this? All right, seeing none, please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Next,
You're not the first. Don't be.
next is item 11C1.
I'm looking back at my staff member who I'm sure is very pleased right now.
Great. Well, you don't move because we have another one.
Yes.
11C1, 2019 fee and rate schedule resolution. Staff recommends City Council approve the attached 2019 fee and rate schedule through resolution. Staff Finance and Administrative Director Maria Sabata is here to answer questions about this.
Okay, thank you. As the mayor mentioned, we are here to ask for approval by resolution of the 2019 fee and rate schedule. We have met a couple times in study session talking about the fee schedule, and last week there were questions specific to 3 items: the penalty late fee, the proposed change effective January 1st at 5%, a 2.5% increase, a turn-off fee increase of $20 to $35, and a turn-on fee of $35, and we had not been charging that. And we provided in the memo a lot of detail answering the questions that were addressed during the study session. Tonight, Tom Brennan, the Director of Utilities, is here to address any questions you may have regarding the specific responses to those questions.
Thank you. Councilmember, are there further questions? Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you. I do have one question. Thank you, sir. And let me just make sure that we are both on the same sheet of music here. I'm on page 3, and towards the bottom, there's a chart that goes over, and it's titled Timeline for Assessment of Penalty Late Fee or Turn Off of Water Service. And I should thank you right off the bat. This does provide a great deal of information that I requested a couple weeks back now, I guess it was, so I do appreciate you guys putting this together. And it gets to beneath that chart that I just discussed, there's a second one titled the 2017-2018 late fees collected. Can you explain to me the number of accounts row, that line item? 300 times 12 equals 3,600, and that's for both 27 and 2018. I'm just not sure what that represents.
We have an average of 300 late payments.
I'm sorry,
The 300 represents.
There's an average of 300?
Yes.
And that would be across water, sewer, storm drainage, and concrete? Or what is that across?
Yeah, they're all included on one bill.
I see. Okay, I see how you reached that. I think that answers my question. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Further questions? All right, could I have a motion to approve? Councilmember Barentine.
When I was reading this on the computer, I saw that one of the reasonings for doing this, the purpose of doing this, is to go ahead and solicit some additional compliance. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And okay, that's the question, so I'll make the comment later.
Any further questions, council member? No, seeing none, could I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the 2019 fee and rate schedule resolution, 11C1.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, further discussion? Councilmember Barentine.
Fees are specifically intended to go ahead and recoup costs. They are not intended to go ahead and be motivators for people to do compliance. That kind of furthered my resolve that I am against those issues that were brought up for the 5% and the turning on and the fee to turn on where there wasn't one, and the increase in the one to turn it off, as well as the additional information that we found out. There's only 300. What the money ends up coming out to, even at the amount in here for $52 for, I think an engineer is $75, and $52 for an employee for an inspector. what we collect in late fees alone pays for that inspector for an entire year. And I don't think that that can justify the increase in the fees because the fees would be to cover the cost of somebody having to do work. And at $52 for 40 hours a week, I think it comes out to $108,000 a year, but it's certainly less than what we end up collecting. I don't think we can justify increasing the fees to cover the cost. And that's kind of what I asked for before. And then to have specific verbiage in here say that it is to elicit compliance and not to cover costs, I really can't support this.
Councilmember Cuesta?
Pardon me. Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to be supporting tonight either, and a lot of it does center on that 2.5 to 5%. And using the numbers presented, and it was far more than I would have expected. Last year we collected $135,000, it looks like, across those late fees. We're doubling that, so we're going to kick that up to 270, and I would agree. Do we need 270 to offset the costs that we're bearing as a city? Secondly, it's probably not necessarily especially relevant, but I do feel worth mentioning. I happened to be driving home after we had this conversation a few weeks ago, and they had just kind of a news segment on, and it was Detroit, but it was folks that have their water shut off and how impactful that becomes to people. It shuts off their toilet, it shuts off their ability to clean clothes. Many times there's children in the house, and it really puts people in a spiral sometimes that if they can't get that water back on quick enough, it's hard for them to come out of, and it really leads to compounding problems for those who are most in need and sometimes really the poorest that we have amongst us. I'm not comfortable at the 5%, and for that reason, I will not be supporting tonight. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Another thing that troubled me a little bit was the statement that some of the fees that you are garnering would be used by the utility department to use the penalty and late fees collected to fund a program to research financial assistance. And I think it is, I agree with Councilmember Cuesta and Councilmember Barentine that it does put people in a downward spiral. And we had a tenant, and that's exactly what happened to the tenant. They got in so deep they couldn't get out. And so I cannot support this either. If we could amend the rate and fee schedule to change those, I think that might be a possibility. Perhaps Councilmember Cuesta.
Council, this is the time to offer something else. Councilmember Sierra is next.
So I actually was thinking along the same lines as Mayor Pro Tem as well in terms of amending amending just what we would collect on. So I was just looking, there's a paragraph within, I believe this is page 3 as well, right above where it says payment late fee. So there's a section that says of the 748 delinquent accounts, about 716 pay their accounts or enter into a no interest payment plan before it is shut off. So after that, the next statement states roughly 14% of the 30 customer accounts who have water service turned off utilize the no interest payment plan. So it tells me that there's really about 4 or 5 that don't utilize that no interest plan. When I was looking at the fee structure, I don't feel comfortable with the turn on fee of $35 just because you are putting someone in a situation where they do pay their bill. Now we're adding an additional $35 on top of that, which doesn't seem that fair to me. So I would be open to amending the proposal to just reflect, keep it at 2.5%, but then raise the turn off fee to $35, but keep the turn on fee to $0. And I'd be happy to make that request.
Could you repeat which is what, $35 for the turn on?
For the turn off fee. So right now the turn off fee is currently $15. I'll be okay with raising that to $35, but I would keep the payment late fee at 2.5% and the turn on fee at 0.
Okay. Councilmember Barentine.
Are we getting away from then the concept that these fees are supposed to be paying to reimburse the city for the job that it does? And it specifically is saying in here that this is to punish people, to garner compliance, and not to go ahead and pay what we end up paying. And that would, I think that's a misuse of the fee.
Councilmember Sierra, were you making a motion with that, an amendment?
I haven't formally made
Okay.
the amendment, but I do plan on making the amendment.
Okay. Other comments? Councilmember Sierra.
So I would move to amend, let's see here, 11C1, the 2,000 fee rate schedule resolution, to raise the turn-off fee to $35, but keep the turn-on fee at $0 and the fee penalty to 2.5%.
All right. Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second.
All right. Discussion about the amendment. Councilmember Barentine.
Can I ask a question? Do we charge everybody who turns off their service?
No, it's only for the non-payment.
Do we charge anybody for turning the service on currently?
No, we do not.
Huh.
As you see in the analysis, it costs us about $28 to turn it off during business hours.
To turn it off?
Yeah, or on. It's about a half hour man in the truck.
Currently, if somebody does an account or does anything, we don't charge a turn-on fee. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Other comments, questions? Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you. I do appreciate the amendment made by Councilmember Sierra, and I'm doing some math here. And if I'm reading the numbers correctly that you presented as well, in 2018 there were 30 folks who made it to that point where water was turned off.
30 a month.
30 a month, excuse me.
And once the water's turned off, they usually pay that day.
Jeez. So just, man, we have 30 people a month. Okay, thank you.
That's out of 10,000 households.
Yeah, almost 11,000.
11,000. Okay. Councilmember Sierra.
I was going to say the other reason why I was wanting to keep the late fee at 2.5% and not penalize the turn-on fee after they do make payment was just the fact that there are assistant or financial assistance programs in place. So obviously, if somebody is in a hardship position that does need to reach out to these types of services, to me, it doesn't make sense for us as a city to penalize or add a late fee percentage to it as well as a turn-on fee if they're seeking out those type of assistance. So I know it's not much at this point, but I was thinking if there is going to be some sort of penalty, it should be on the front end, not necessarily on the back end if they're utilizing any type of service.
Councilmember Barentine.
We already have a penalty, and that penalty garners the city in 2018 $135,000. That's a lot of money out of basically about 300 households that probably end up in some kind of trouble, and they already pay a penalty. We're not enforcing a penalty. They already pay a penalty and a late fee. So to increase this, and I think substantially, I think is to 300 people who supply a full-paid, more than a full-paid employee for that department. That one program alone supplies that kind of money. I think is ridiculous to put that on the backs of people that are already having a hard time. I can't support it.
Councilmember Cuesta.
Oh, pardon me. My light just remained on. Pardon me.
Maybe I didn't turn it off. I also have a question. So in following up what Councilmember Barentine has suggested of $130,000, what is the justification for that given the numbers in terms of, is it over accommodating for the expense in your mind, or is it the same? Is it under, how do you rate it?
Well, that's 3,600 accounts a year. It's 300 a month. So it's 3,600 counts a year.
Director Sabata, did you want to add something?
That penalty comes out to about $11.46 per account.
Can I have a clarification, please, Mayor?
Yes.
There are not 3,600 individual accounts.
No. 300 a month do not pay their bills, so there's a total of 3,600 late
I'll defer to the
payments.
accountant that if we go ahead and take the amount of money and divide it by 3,600 accounts, that's what you come up with. But it is not 3,600 accounts that are delinquent. It is more than likely the same similar accounts each billing cycle. So that gives an appropriately lower amount. So if we take your monthly amount and just assume that basically it's about the same constituency of people that are late, that are going through this problem, but I don't think it's 3,600 individual different accounts. So I stand by my statement that I think that we're dealing with a population of somewhere between 300 and 400 people, 500 people maybe, accounts for households that go through some kind of problem through the year, but are probably generally consistent within a couple of hundred. And we're picking on then the poorest people when we already exact a price from them. So I just wanted that clarification. So
that was actually a statement I'd like to ask you to verify. Is that true or not?
Well, she was shaking her head, so I'm
asking her to
I'm sorry.
give us some information to make sure it's just not our statements.
So I believe it's the word accounts, that's the issue, correct? It's the number of instances. Perhaps that's a better word. Yes.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
If we didn't change it at all, left it at the 2.5% and the turnoff fee at $15, that would be if we didn't change it at all. That's what the 2017 and 2018 figures were generated from that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And how much does it cost to deal with those instances? Now, that $135,659, was that profit? Or what did it cost? Do you understand what I'm asking?
A turnoff costs approximately $28 per turnoff, so that's a cost we incur. There's also the printing of late notices, in the mailing of them, and the delivery of the red tags, and the printing of those. So we do incur a cost in staff time.
So we're still making money even though it's costing us that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to change it at all. We could leave it just like it is.
Well, the $15 turnoff, we're not covering our cost.
So the cost of that is $28 right now. So you're going up to $35, right, per turnoff. And then the turn-on is costing the same. So we're not recouping on those. Right. Councilmember Barentine.
I also want to bring to this council's attention that we are having a significant increase in the what we're charging for services here. 7% alone on the sewer, right?
That's correct.
That's significant. I think that we need to go ahead and, like I brought up, I believe we're recouping our costs because this more than covers for an entire full-time employee, 7 days, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, to go ahead and do nothing but go ahead and shut them on and off. So I believe that we're probably recouping our costs. That on top of the additional charges that people are going to be facing, I think it just would be wrong to do this.
Councilmember Cuesta, and then I'm going to ask us to come to some conclusion here.
You bet. Just speaking to the turn-off, turn-on fee, it appears that right now we are covering our costs. If it's $28 each time to turn it off and then $28 to turn it on, that's $56. We're currently charging $20 to turn it off, $35 to turn it back on. That's $55. It costs $55. We're a buck short on it, but to me, we're essentially covering our costs at this point, as the fees stand right now, if I'm understanding the math correctly. Minus $1.
That's correct, except for the instances where it's after hours and we're paying more money. So I think we would have to go back and really evaluate it per instance, per activity, to be perfectly honest. It's a cost accounting thing. You can't, I mean, that's a good, that's a good average, but I think it's going to be very close.
Point of information, so it's the after-hours ones that are costing us?
No, they both cost, but the cost is $90 to turn on the water service after business hours.
So what happens if they just have to wait till the next business day?
I think it's the matter of the service level that our citizens expect.
And the majority of them are actually paying them as soon as that happens. So probably people don't want their water turned off. So I have an idea on this. Because the rates have gone up, I would prefer not to do it all at once. And so I would love to see us see what happens in the course of the year, figure out how to get a little bit more back on for can be the $90 if you could figure out exactly what that is. If we're not getting what we need to cover it, then perhaps we come up with a different schedule of fees. I don't want to guess at what that is tonight. But otherwise, I think because the combination of the two, I'm a little less comfortable now that I've seen it all. I don't think we're out of line with a lot of other cities for sure, but I also am very aware of the level of income stresses that a lot of families have in our city. And sometimes people just forget to pay, and that's why they pay the same day. They just got paid. It's not because they can't, it's just something else comes up, but I would certainly not want everyone then to have to be in deep trouble financially. So I don't know what that does to our amendment. We've got an amendment on here of 2.5% and a turn on and no turn off fee, right? A turn on of 35 and no turn off of 0. Or a turn off, yeah, which is an offset.
Right. Well, point of information, Councilmember Cuesta, can you repeat what you said when you got to the $55 or?
You bet, and I appreciate the additional information provided. So I'm scrolling back to the chart here. Okay, so here we go. I have the current fees as they stand right now as $20 to turn off the water, $35 to turn it on, taking us a total of $55 for the turn off and turn on. And then I was using the $28 per off, per on figure, which takes us to $56. So we're charging $55 now on our fees, $56 is what it costs, but then it was added that there's an additional fee if done after hours. So at least during the day, we're covering our fees, it appears to me.
Is there a way to go back and figure out exactly what happens, how many are over the amount and get a little closer average, or is that why 35 is on there? Has that already been figured in? Is that what the 35,
yes, that was figured in. And since it was an average, we rounded up.
Yeah.
But yes, we did.
Okay. So I think we probably need, okay, Mayor Pro Tem and then.
Well, and my one question for Councilmember Cuesta is at the top of page, I believe it's 3, where it talks about the current utilities fees, 2.5%, and then $15 turnoff fee and no turn-on fee. So where did you see the $20? I mean,
I think you were looking at the increase.
Yes, excuse me. I'm trying to get my columns onto one page here, pardon me, as I do this. Pardon me, that is correct. That is the proposed fees. Excuse me. You guys can correct me sooner, staff, when I'm saying the things all wrong. Don't hesitate.
I was thinking that you were talking about what it would be, so.
Understood, thank you.
So was I. Some of us understood what you're getting at.
Thank you. Then I did misstate that, yes, pardon me.
Thank you. I just wanted to.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, understood correctly.
We need to decide on this. So there's a amendment of which we've just been given.
Can I ask an additional question then?
One more.
So are you saying that what we're collecting currently right now, which is the $135,000, isn't covering our fees? That it takes more than a full-time employee to go around and shut and turn on water?
Yes, we have more than one person involved in our billing.
I understand you have more than one
And
person
it's not
that's
just
involved in the
shutting
billing.
water off.
At $52 an hour, we more than cover a full-time employee for an entire year just to deal with that issue. That's just being paid by this service already, by these 300, 400 accounts already.
Oh, yes, that would cover the turnoffs, definitely.
Okay. And since the additional information hasn't been brought forward, and the only piece that came in here was that it was meant to be a deterrent, not to cover costs. Your argument in here was not that it was going to cover costs, but that it was to deter them from not paying. So that's why I had a problem with it, because I started this by saying that fees are to recoup costs, not punish, not deter them. So earlier you said it covered the costs, and
Yes, you know what, I'm going to ask us to stop here because I think you've said this several times and I think you have made a point here. Let's decide, okay, let's vote on whether we want to vote on the amendment of turn off for 35 and turn on, no, and then 2.5% fee penalty. All right, please vote on the amendment first.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 3 ayes and 4 nays. The 4 nays being Mayor Pro Tem Russell, Councilmember Wink, Councilmember Barentine, and Councilmember Cuesta.
All right, so then it goes back to the original one, which is not, okay, so we'll vote on that. Please vote for the original, which is stated there. Councilmember Barentine, did you have a question? Your light is on, so maybe I didn't turn it.
correct, but the original being that it would just be the original amount that we had proposed. As it stands right now that we would be voting on this to have the increase, then I would like to make an amendment that we take those out of this fee schedule.
Okay.
The increase and to those 3. I think that we've already beat enough.
Can you state it?
I will.
Can you, okay, let's state it. Do you have it? The clerk doesn't have it. Can you state exactly what 3 things you're talking about?
That we would remove the 2.5% increase for the proposed penalty fee, late fee, that we would eliminate the $20 increase for the turn-off fee, and that we would eliminate the turn-on fee of $35.
And then everything else would remain the same as proposed.
Correct.
Okay, great. Any other conversation about that?
Except for that they had already removed previously the penalty, and the red tag is taken out of this.
That,
Okay,
yes,
that's
it would be as presented tonight, minus those 3 things. All right, please vote. Oh, yeah, we had a second from
I had a
Mayor
second,
Pro Tem.
yeah.
Did you get that? Yeah,
Yes.
please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Wink.
Right, moving on to 11.
Thank you.
C2, professional services agreement for legal services with Kaplan, Kirsch, and Rockwell. Staff recommends the City Council approve a professional services agreement with them to serve as special counsel in connection with the ground lease matters and redevelopment issues associated with the upcoming sale of the former Weingarten Realty property at the City Center. And here to present is staff redevelopment manager Dan Paremba. Questions for him?
Mayor Pro Tem, Council. This is really just a follow-up on our recent 3 now study session conversations, and it's a recommendation from the EAF Board and Community Development staff to retain Kaplan, Kirsch, and Rockwell as the city's special counsel in connection with the City Center ground lease matters pertaining to the former Weingarten property and other City Center redevelopment matters. We went through the details of the RFQ solicitation process. 4 firms responded. They were high-quality proposals. We did a detailed evaluation of the proposals, and Kaplan, Kirsch, Rockwell was the top respondent and also had the lowest blended cost. I might also just point out that as stated in the RFQ, special counsel's role is specifically to advise City Council on critical ground lease and redevelopment decisions and assist the project team which will also be taking direction from council. This is recommended as a 2019 contract through 12/31/19. It's estimated to have a not-to-exceed contract amount of $90,000, but a specific budget will be brought back to council once the special counsel is on board and has more time to evaluate the issues. I'd also mention that it's a one-year renewal at the discretion of council. The EAF board had recommended that these legal fees be paid out of the EAF central cash unrestricted balance, which was just under $374,000 as of year-end 2018. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve? 11C2.
I move to approve 11C2, professional services agreement for legal services with Kaplan, Kirsch, Rockwell.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion, council? Councilmember Barentine?
I didn't have any questions. I already brought up the concerns that I had before the RFP went out. Not one of them was represented or taken, went ahead and I was still left with the same conflicts. We had the study session. I brought up those issues at that time. So just for the record, I'll state that having this agreement is a conflict of interest. No attorney organization can go ahead and represent all the parties at the table when they don't have equal interest. The staff will be representing both through EAF, the city, and through their positions as staff, which also creates some concerns. And the third problem is that Kaplan, Kirsch, Rockwell, as discussed during the study session, represented Miller Weingarten and was part of the concerns and problems that happened in this whole debacle of City Center that brings us to this point today. And I think that the only way we can do better in the future is to not repeat the same mistakes.
Let me just correct you on that. It wasn't actually Kaplan, Kirsch, and Rockwell. It was one of their partners who had worked for the firm of Isaacs and Rosenbaum, who had represented Weingarten at the time.
I appreciate that. Currently, right now, I have the floor. Just 1 second. I will complete my... You said that during that study session, we were made aware that we had a legal document signed that they didn't have a conflict of interest or because of their representation. I think that that's representation enough that there is concern for their involvement in the city center in the first place. One of the serious problems that happened with this was the forming of all of the alliances and the lease holding that made it very difficult to work with City Center, and they were part of that, and Miller Weingarten foreclosed. So I'm not so sure that this kind of representation and repeating the mistakes of the past is a good idea, and that's my protest to it. I won't be voting for it.
Manager Perrino, would you like to correct anything else, or?
I would just, again, point out that it was one of the partners of Kaplan, Kirsch, and Rockwell that had worked for a different law firm at the time. And so it was not Kaplan, Kirsch, Rockwell that had represented Weingarten. Also, I'll just point out that the lease itself, as far as a functioning agreement between EAF and the parties involved, has worked quite well. It's done everything it was intended to do. It was actually the debt structure that Weingarten had on the property and the specific structure of that debt that caused them to walk away. It had nothing to do with the structure of the ground lease whatsoever.
Thank you.
Can I have a point of information, Mayor? Is this a debate portion of it?
I'm asking a question.
No,
it isn't. So
okay. if there's information brought up that I believe that is inaccurate, and we're going to just keep having a back and forth, I thought this was the time so that once before we vote, that we at least can state why we're voting the way we're voting, not have a debate session.
That's fine, but sometimes things get said that I think are incorrect, and I want to make sure
And I
that the
believe that
public
something just got said that was incorrect now, and I would like to have an opportunity to correct it as well, but I don't really want to have the back and
Great,
forth.
let's keep moving then.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mayor Pro Tem?
I do also have a problem with a conflict of interest with council. The fact that this one entity can represent every different person. We as the council will be making the final decision, and I really think that we as the council really need a separate legal counsel from the rest. So I can't support it for that reason.
All right, please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 5 ayes and 2 nays, the 2 nays being Mayor Pro Tem Russell and Councilmember Barentine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, would you like a quick break, or should we move through these? Anybody want a break? Need a break? All right, let's keep moving. 11C3, the DDI contract. Staff recommends that council approve by motion a contract with Development Dimensions International Incorporated to provide customized training to all city employees. Here to give us information is Director Maria Gonzalez. Questions for Ms. Gonzalez? Any questions on this one? Mayor Pro Tem.
I know that this question has been asked at different times. Is it possible for council to get a list of all the employees that have departed from the city since January of 2018? And because approving this, is it because we don't have any long-term employees that have history? So I would like more information on how many people have actually been terminated from the city, either self-terminated or terminated by us. Can we get that information?
I believe that information was requested and provided to council already.
Yes.
And I can pull it out, but it's being provided to council already.
Perhaps resend it in an email. It was in the last few weeks.
Was it in a council request? Okay, I apologize.
Easy to miss those. All right, could I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve agenda item 11C3, DDI training contract.
Thank you. In a second? All right. Councilmember Barentine?
Is there some reason that we're not able to provide some of this in-house? I mean, is it because we're having newer employees, or that we're having turnover, that we need this? This is pretty expensive over 3 years, so I'm just...
So one of the responsibilities of HR is to provide training and development. We have been doing it for years. Last year and the year prior to that, what we did is to buy off-the-shelf training, like Prior, for example. I mean, we always provide very high-quality training. The problem with Prior is that it's an off-the-shelf built for everybody, and we have a lot of customization given all the different departments with the different nature that we have. Actually, DDI will come cheaper than what we did last year, and it will be customized, and it will be provided by employees, by experts within the city. That's what the program will do. They will come and train employees that are center of excellency and center of expertise. They will be trained to be facilitators, and they will facilitate the training instead of buying it off the shelf and trying to feed everybody into the same training.
Okay, but didn't we just have a training program come through? I mean, what was the training program that they did through the process when City Manager Eric Keck came through? It was quite an extensive program to evaluate and train.
That was an extra training. It was on change management, and it was a training for 16 employees within the city. This is training for all employees within the city.
Okay, and that was currently already budgeted for? Is this an addition?
No, that's budgeted for. We have $75,000 for training for the whole city. So the contract will be 65 per year.
Per year, okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Cuesta, and we are really in the discussion time, but if you have more questions, feel free to keep asking. Councilmember Cuesta?
Could you repeat that for me, Mayor Wilson?
Well, go ahead, but I'd asked for you to ask her questions before we made the motion, but now we're asking her questions.
I'm jumping back in.
Just letting you go back for it, but
you.
that's okay.
Thank you, understood. As I'm looking at the council communication, I think this is a pretty brief question. Clearly, we're going with DDI. Did this go out to bid?
No, it didn't, because there is no company that can offer frontline leadership training customized to the city. I mean, we will have to buy off-the-shelf training. There is no other organization that we could afford. I mean, we can ask a university to create a program for us, but we cannot afford it.
That is true.
So if it didn't go out to bid, is this one of the state's providers? And I'm looking for the terminology right now. City attorney, can you help me out with that? When we're using a vendor that is a state-approved vendor? Sole source, excuse me. This is a sole source vendor?
This is a sole source vendor, yes.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Amir Pro Tem.
Is this something that we need to move forward on now, or is it something that we maybe should wait until we have the new city manager on board?
Well, I'm gonna talk about timing. I mean, we probably won't have a new city manager until the summer, even if we go very, very fast. We cannot wait until the summer to start the training program because we won't have any training. So we have plans and we have discussed it, and I mean, it was on the budget already to do training. We're just trying to improve the quality of training that we're giving out.
And can we renew this? I mean, this is a 3-year program, right?
And I mean, it was reviewed by legal. Actually, Doug was awesome helping me with the contract. We can cancel the contract with 30 days notice before the term of the current year. So 30 days into the next year, we can tell them we are not going forward, and that will be it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. I'm supportive of this. It's leadership development and training for our staff, and I think it's important in any place of business where you work and where you want to work and where you want to continue to work. It's important for the leadership to support you in learning and growing and being the best employee you can. So I think this is really important for us to do, and so I will be supporting it tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Wink.
I'm also very much in support of this. Professionals out there know that training and development of our workforce is the standard in terms of offering your employees appropriate career development and achieving organizational excellence. It's baseline offering this service to your employee in your workforce. So I'm grateful that you've found DDI, a reputable company that can provide the gamut of what's needed for our city employees, and I wholeheartedly support it. It's standard, it's baseline. So thank you, Director Gonzalez. I'm in support of this.
All right, let's vote. Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. Next is Dr. Cog, or it's 11C4, Dr. Cog, Arapahoe County 2020-2023 TIP Subregional Application, authorization for the mayor to sign a letter of support, including financial contribution to the Oxford Pedestrian Bridge. Here to present and answer questions is Director Maria DeAndrea.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll stand for any questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Well, first of all, is this in the budget?
Not at this time. So earlier, Director Sabata talked about that on April 22nd, we begin the process of talking about, as part of the 2020 budget, capital improvement projects. So we would bring these projects forward at that time.
So it wouldn't probably happen until the 2020 budget cycle anyway.
Correct. This is for the 2020 through 2023 fiscal year federal funding.
Okay, and then one other question. If council agrees to have the mayor sign the support for the project and our portion of the funding, if, say, we didn't get the project, would the funding still remain in our budget?
No, because we then need to come up with the full $2 million. So we'd need to discuss that, and if we wanted to move forward as a capital improvement project just funded by the city at that point.
I think you were asking whether we get the 400,000 back, right? If they
Right,
can approve it.
right.
Or if it
Absolutely, yeah.
We keep it.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
If they don't approve it, everybody doesn't pay anything.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Martinez, I think, was next.
Thank you. I just have a question. In the summary portion in the financial implications, it says the local match is $400,000, but then in the letter it says that Englewood's share would commit $140,000. Can you just kind of walk me through that breakdown? I didn't quite understand why that's
Yes.
different.
Thank you, Councilmember Martinez. I noticed that when I was rereading the packet this evening. That's a mistake on my part. The letter will be corrected before we have the mayor sign it. It should be $400,000.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. I thought maybe I was possibly.
I created all three of these like in a
I know,
row,
I
so
noticed that. Okay, thank you.
I messed up.
Councilmember Barentine.
And just to reiterate again, this bridge would be a total of $2 million. There's 3 partners that are in it. The city would be, as one of the partners, would be $400,000, and it would have to be held. And the timeline again for completion?
Yeah, so if we moved forward, so any of these projects, because we're using federal funds, we would need to go through an environmental clearance process. So National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, if you're familiar with that term. So we would start that and the design in 2020, and then probably construction in the year 2021.
The only other question I have is that if us utilizing this or becoming part of this grant process, does it in any way prohibit us or limit us from any other grant projects? Because obviously this isn't maybe the highest capital project, improvement project, or infrastructure project on everybody's mind, but it wouldn't preclude us from getting any other grant or limit us from access from any other federal monies.
Just to clarify, do you mean like for our share, the $400,000? I believe it would from the source standpoint, so these grants require that only 80% maximum come from federal funds. So the other $400,000 could come from state funds or local funds, which they consider municipalities. So if, for instance, there was a state grant that we could pursue, or say funding from CDOT, in this case, they would not fund it.
Actually, what I'm asking is, would this be that we have this project, and that if we wanted to, say, do a pipe or sewer project or some flooding project, would they say, no, you've already participated and gotten some federal dollars over here, that it would in any way preclude us from any other grant?
No.
Okay.
No, sorry, I didn't understand that. I thought you meant just for that, for our share.
No, I got that, but you clarified it. Thank you.
Could I have a motion to approve? Oh, Councilmember Martinez, do you have a question?
I just have one question.
That's
So
fine.
just to confirm, the bridge will go over Oxford, right?
Correct, on the east side of Santa Fe.
East side of Santa Fe. Okay, great, thank you. I move to approve, let me see, what number is it?
11C4.
11C4, Dr. Cog, Arapahoe County, 2020 to 2023, TIP, sub-regional application authorization for mayor to sign a letter of support, including financial contribution for the Oxford pedestrian bridge.
Can I have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. 11C5 is the Dr. Cog, Arapahoe County 2020-2023 TIP sub-regional application for authorizing the mayor to sign and support, including financial contribution for the US 285 Broadway interchange reconstruction. I should probably read that the letter of support and financial contribution of $1 million in support of the City of Englewood sub-regional Dr. Cog grant submittal for the US 285 Broadway interchange. So it does have a price tag a little bit more than the last one. And Public Works Director again is Maria DeAndrea.
Just one point of additional information that I've received since we put the packet together. CDOT has confirmed verbally that they've committed to the $900,000 contribution that we've asked for.
That's excellent. Any further questions from our staff? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve 11C5, Dr. Cog, Arapahoe County 2020-2023 TIP sub-regional application, authorization for the mayor to sign a letter of support, including financial contribution for US 285 Broadway interchange reconstruction.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Next is 11C4, the Dr. Cog, Arapahoe County US 285 Congestion Mitigation and Operational Improvement Study. Staff recommends authorizing by motion the mayor to sign the attached draft letter of support and financial contribution of $140,000 in support of the City of Englewood Subregional Dr. Cog, Arapahoe County grant submittal for the US 285 Congestion Mitigation and Operations Improvement Study. Director Maria DeAndrea is here to answer questions.
Just again, CDOT has confirmed verbally that they're contributing $200,000 towards this project. And this was the project that we submitted as a regional application, one of 3 that Arapahoe County submitted to Dr. Cog, which did not get funded or did not get selected. So we're trying now for the sub-regional application.
Thank you. Any questions, Mayor Pro Tem?
And this may be the same thing in the letter. It actually shows Englewood at 120,000 instead of 140. And I think it says that somewhere in the letter too.
I'll go over those with a fine-tooth comb.
Okay, thank you.
I wondered if you got the 140 from this one and ended up in the other one somehow.
It was a late night. I will double check before we give them to you for your signature.
Any further questions? Could I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve agenda item 11C6, Dr. Cog / Arapahoe County 2020 to 2023 TIP sub-regional application, authorization for mayor to sign a letter of support, including financial contribution for US 285 congestion mitigation and operational improvement study.
I'll second.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez?
Thank you. I just want to say I'm really excited about all of these opportunities, but I think this one I am most excited about. It really will impact our region. It already impacts our region the way it is. So I'm really excited to see what happens with this. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I too am very excited about these 3. It's been an interesting process to work with Dr. Cog in our sub-region, and I really want to thank our Director Maria DeAndrea for the work that she's done, because the technical work that has been done on this is done by her and staff and the other staff of the sub-regional areas. And they've worked really well together. This is a new, I think you know, this is a new way of doing things. We have no idea if we're going to get any of these, but it's sure wonderful. In the last 9 years, I've never really been a part of having this type of possibility coming forward. So it's very exciting. Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Our next item is 11C7, Slate Communication Contract for Communications. Staff recommends City Council approve by motion a contract with Slate Communications to provide communication support, including production of the quarterly Citizen magazine and recreation guide, as well as consulting for special events and marketing initiatives as requested. Interim City Manager Dorothy Hargrove is here to answer questions.
Thank you. I will reiterate the results of the RFP and the competitive process. Slate Communications came in the only complete bid, and it was the lowest price. They've done good work for us over the last 3 years, and this contract is recommending that they continue that service to our community.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Mayor Pro, okay, go ahead. That's okay. Go ahead, Amy.
I move to approve 11C7, Slate Communications Contract for Communication Support.
I second.
All right. Councilmember Martinez.
I just want to say I've been very pleased to work with Slate. I am really glad that they want to continue working with us. I constantly get positive feedback on the magazine and how nice it is and the events, and I think it's a great partnership. So looking forward to supporting this tonight.
Do you have any further comments? Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
I just have a question. I'm very pleased with it. I've got a lot of positive feedback also, but the one thing that continues to be troubling is people don't get it. I mean, the mailing.
Duly noted. I recognize that's a problem, and as in my position being more involved with the communications department, it's one of our top priorities to fix it. Very legitimate concern.
Okay.
I don't have an answer, but we'll keep working on that.
Okay, you're working on that. And is it possible I had a call the other day, someone hasn't gotten a magazine probably for the last year. Is it possible to get that person's name on the mailing list?
Absolutely. If they'll, contact the city manager's office, we'll make sure they get a copy.
Okay.
Or several copies.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor, that's a good point. If you hear of any citizens that aren't getting this, refer their name and, possible address to, and of course it goes to the actual residents that live in the buildings, right? So, but give your names to, and let's make sure everybody gets them. I didn't get it a couple of times and there was a glitch. All right, do we have a motion? Yes, we do. Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you all.
All right, council, do you need a break now before we go into executive session and come back and do that? Or do you want to go straight in? Okay, let's go take a break. I would take a 5-minute recess. We'll come back here and announce our executive session and get our work done. program. Well, I was taking them off for the metal detector.
Hotels. Sure.
Council, if we could be reseated.
I've been up since 5.
Council, for the sake of time, I thought we would start with the one that I asked our city attorney and interim manager if there was a priority of either of these two, which one it would be, and it would be number 2 for the executive session. So I'd like to start with that one, read that one, go in, and then if we have enough time, we will come back out. And if you'd like to do the first one, then we'll do that one. Anybody have any objections to that? All right, so then we will move to executive session. I move to go into the executive session for a conference with staff regarding details of security arrangements pursuant to CRS 24-4-4024D, and for the opportunity to be advised by the city attorney regarding specific legal questions and or to receive legal advice on matters associated with litigation, anticipated litigation pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024B. Such executive session to include Mayor Linda Olson, Mayor Pro Tem Rita Russell, and council members Laurette Barentine, Dave Cuesta, Amy Martinez, Nathaniel Sierra, and Cheryl Winkin, City Attorney Allison McKinney Brown, and Interim City Manager Dorothy Hargrove. Could I have a second to this motion?
Second.
No. So Councilmember Wink was asking if the chief police was included in this, and that person's name is not on this list, correct? No. Right. Yes, the chief. So we will include the chief of police. All right. So I need a second. I think we had one.
Second.
All right. Please vote. Oh, Councilmember Quest, I have a question.
We had a very similarly worded executive session, I believe it was 2 weeks ago or last, and we were able to put some more detail on it. It was more broad and just said security arrangements, and we were able to get more specific at least 2 weeks ago to his security arrangements for this building. Are we able to get more specific with this particular request as we were 2 weeks ago?
I can add security arrangements for this building and other facilities throughout the city.
I'm sorry, what was the second portion of that?
And other facilities throughout the city tangentially, but the focus is on this building. Does that answer your question, sir?
And I'm sorry, I'm going to put a little bit finer point on it. So it's this building, but then just kind of generically saying other buildings or other facilities throughout the city?
Correct. The facilities that are owned by the city.
Can you go beyond that?
Malley Center, the rec center, the service center, the police building. What am I forgetting? That's it.
It is specifically those ones that you just listed?
Yes.
Thank
you. All right, please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show. 5 ayes and 2 nays, the 2 nays being Councilmember Barentine and Councilmember Cuesta.
All right, we do have a quorum to go in, or we have enough votes out of the quorum, so we will move to the next room. The time is now 9:56 and the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Mayor Linda Olson, Mayor Pro Tem Rita Russell, Council members Othaniel Sierra, Lorette Barentine, Dave Cuesta, Amy Martinez, Cheryl Wink, City Attorney Allison McKinney Brown, Interim City Manager Dorothy Hargrove, and Chief of Police John Collins. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meeting laws, I would ask you to state your concerns for the record. Are there any concerns? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
And do we have to vote that, don't we, on it? Do we have to
Close the
this executive session? Yes.
I'm sorry, what was this? Who was the second?
Second. Who was? Councilmember Wink.
Second.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Right, Council, the next item is the first executive session that was on here. Are you interested in taking the time to go into that now? Anybody objecting to that?
I think we're getting a little, I would like to know whether this is going to be one subject matter or not, whether it's one issue or not.
So let me read it first, and then we can have a conversation. The executive session for a conference with the city attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice to review active litigation and issues associated with active litigation under CS Section 24-6-4024B. Conversation, are you interested in moving this forward? And if so, actually, I'm not asking you whether you agree to this or not. I'm asking you, do you want to open this one up to have the conversation? Or would you like to adjourn tonight and go home because it's 10 o'clock? That's really what it's about. Councilmember Barentine.
Because of a comment that was made, I believe it's going to be more than one subject, and I think that that's going to be a more lengthy conversation, and I would not want to do that tonight.
Councilmember Martinez.
Are the issues being discussed of a time-sensitive nature?
Councilmember Cuesta.
I believe this question is along what you just addressed, but correct me if I'm wrong. So we would not approve your expenses here in public before the citizens?
You approve a lot of them, but if it's in anticipation of litigation, honestly, none of us know what those expenses are in advance. So the only time you actually hear about things that I have approved in anticipation of litigation is in executive session. So yeah, that's when those things happen. For example, I don't think you guys have approved the water attorney's expenses in 30 years.
Has he been paid?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Do those expenses ever exceed the $25,000?
We pay water council $500,000 a year.
More of a technical question. We can have the discussion later. But why would that be exempt from the purchasing policy?
As a matter of fact, Maria Sabata is working with me to figure some of those questions out. But I'm not an employee of the city manager. I'm your employee. And the city manager a lot of times doesn't know what the attorney-client issues are. You get to. I bring the city manager in on as much as I possibly can, but You are the only body who gets to know everything that's happening that's in anticipation of litigation.
Thank you. And for my own clarity, again, I appreciate entertaining these questions. So you can just incur those expenses, and we would then be approving them after the fact, and they could exceed $50,000.
I wouldn't. There's nothing that prevents it other than the fact that I don't. The two smallest expenses that I've had this year have been out of my own budget, and I'm incredibly proud of the fact that we've dropped legal spending hundreds of thousands of dollars since I've gotten here. I'm really proud of that, and you guys are totally unaware because we've never had that discussion. But at this point, if it's in anticipation of litigation, most of that stuff runs through CIRSA. So basically, once I approve the law firm that they've got a contract with, we're writing those checks, but you guys don't see it unless I bring it to you. And so, again, that's one of the reasons why I really like for you to know what's going on.
And I realize I just said 50. I meant 25. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Barentine.
For clarification, we can go into executive session and you can explain to us what's going on with the money and what's going on with the case and what you anticipate is going to happen or negotiation, but we still can't make a decision out there. We would still have to come out here and vote on any money and that would be being paid out or any law firms that would be being hired. That's still supposed to, that was a fairly routine process. We wouldn't be making a decision in executive session on money you would be being paid. We would only be getting information on why we should spend it or what's going on.
You don't make decisions in executive session ever.
Right.
So I want to clarify that you cannot do that. But if you want to know what's happening with matters that are in litigation or those types of things, those are attorney-client, and I speak to you about that as a body. So when you sit as a body, you are the client, not as individuals. So your opportunity to know about those matters. You've always been advised about that in executive session. That has always happened. Recently, I think that there's been a little pushback about going into executive session and learning that stuff, but it's my goal that you guys know what's going on. So this is my opportunity to educate you about attorney-client privilege matters.
Well, then to the mayor's question, I would say that a budget issue has been brought up in a way that we've been handling something for 30 years with the water department, and it sounds like a lot of issues. I think that I would like to have a decent amount of time when I'm not exhausted, and I think we should reschedule the executive session.
I'd like to have everyone weigh in. So, Councilmember Sierra, do you want to continue?
I would like to postpone it to another day.
Councilmember Martinez?
I would like to continue. This has been on our, this has been requested months ago and frequently, and I think we should go forward with it tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I would like to postpone it.
Right. Councilmember Wink.
I'm okay either way. I would like to, if we have the capacity, just go through the work tonight so we can progress with other issues before.
It sounds like Councilmember Barentine's no and Cuesta.
Well, I'd take the vote. If you want to take the vote tonight, I'll partake in the vote.
Okay. If we take a vote tonight and it is a no, does that mean we can't come back and do this the following?
No, that doesn't mean that. We can go into executive session for attorney-client as every single meeting if we want to.
I'm going to make a decision then based on the numbers here. I'm going to say let's postpone it for another 2 weeks. And so in the meantime, I would like to ask council members that you would let the attorney know what kinds of concerns you have about what we might go into for this. It sounds like a budget issue came up, but I don't believe that's really, we weren't going to decide how budgets are working in this meeting. It was really about attorney-client privileges of what's going on in litigation. And that has happened many times in the past. We've never made decisions about anything. We may be asked our opinion on to the tolerance level, and then we might come out here and make a decision, but we have done this very rarely in the last 5 years. So, all right, let's move on then. We'll table that one. So the next is council member's choice, and I will start. Who would like to begin?
I can begin.
All right.
So there was a Parks and Recs meeting that occurred last Thursday, I believe. Yeah, it was Valentine's Day. So we actually heard a couple of speakers tonight come from Case, where they talked about the Depot Park Pollinator Garden, the organic turf build at possible locations around town. So I won't go into too much detail there. I'll mention 3 things to kind of keep it short. So there was, we approved some software back in October, I want to say, for the golf course. That went live on Friday. So, so that was a pretty quick turnaround in terms of 3 months or so, in terms of getting the software up and running, but it is, and so looking forward to hopefully paying off for the golf course. There's also going to be a promotion that they're going to be rolling out. They're going to be working with Adidas. If you bring in a used golf shirt, you're going to get a 25% discount on a new shirt. The used shirts are going to be going to people in need. So from our understanding from the meeting that day, it's not going to affect the profit margin that the golf course is seeing, but it's going to go towards a great cause, and it shouldn't affect their budget very much at all. And also the Englewood Unleashed, working with the subcommittee within Parks and Rec, they're getting together. So obviously it sounds like we're going to get a little bit more update on the next Parks and Rec meeting. So that is it.
All right, Councilmember Martinez.
Sure. At the last KEB meeting, some folks from Case and came and talked about the same issues that they did tonight, and also with the Parks and Rec Commission. So I'm pleased to see the groups working together. The KEB also asked, we talked about the city center redevelopment, and they asked what would be the most appropriate way for them as a group to give input or feedback on what they would like to see happen with the redevelopment process. I said, of course, they can reach out to us at any time, but if they wanted to put something more formal together as a group, they would kind of just provide a written communication to council. Is that appropriate? Most appropriate?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Good suggestion.
So they did, and they suggested they want to see, obviously sustainability things, charging stations for electric vehicles, more greenery, more recycling, solar, stuff like that. So they're going to possibly work on recommendations along those lines. What else? Also, they're planning their events upcoming. They're really excited about those. And this Sunday, I believe it's like 2 to 4, the Culture Arts Commission is having an artist meet and greet event in the library for local creatives. So if you are creative or know one or want to come meet some that are your neighbors and community members, that's in the library this Sunday afternoon. And that's all for me.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
One thing that I have that I would like for us to talk about is what do we do when the permanent record of the meeting is defective? Because we use the recording as the permanent record rather than the action minutes.
No, we don't. Your minutes are, as you approve them, are the actual minutes of the meeting. So those are the formal minutes, and that's why you didn't approve tonight's minutes, because you couldn't approve what you didn't know it was going to contain. You've set up audio and visual as a courtesy, but for years and years you didn't have it, and I think one of the issues is that this system is right at 2 years old, and there's a lot of quirks and problems in it, but you've never changed your rules to make the audio or visual the actual legal record of the meeting.
Okay, so our written minutes are the actual legal. Okay, thank you. So I guess, and we already really talked about this, about checking into, one of the council requests, one of the individuals, I believe it was Mike Jones, said suggested that we ask, I don't know whether he meant the IT department or whoever, to do an assessment to figure out what the problem was.
We did a response to a council request in the packet, and there was a response from our IT department about they're working on that. Came in, I think it was council request number 25 this year. So they are assessing it. They're looking at options, and we're trying to get some good quotes to figure out what some of the options would be. But that's very much in progress.
Okay, thank you. And then one other council request is community development, following through on Mr. Dewis's request for the community development violations. Apparently, code enforcement did come and address the code violations for them, but community development has not been out to address those issues.
I'll follow up on that.
Okay, thank you. And then just one other thing, I had coffee at the Simon Center on the 2nd of February, and apparently it had snowed just before that, and they were saying that they had a problem wheelchairs could not cross Broadway, and the snow had been plowed on all of the handicap ramps around there. And I do know that, I mean, because once before, the city apparently is responsible for along the post office there on Floyd. It is not the post office's property, it is the city's. So if we could just make sure that those are clear, because there's a lot of handicapped people.
So the snow removal issues around Simon Center. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Wink?
No report.
Councilmember Berentine?
Jan Brown had attended my coffee, my second Saturday meeting, and had brought up the issue of the bus stops. And so I didn't bring that up last time because Councilmember Sierra did. Did you get a follow-up on that?
At this point, no, not yet, not within council request.
Okay, then I would like to just second his request for that the businesses, or who's responsible, whether it's RTD, the city, or the business, and that we put some, I don't know, if it's being plowed back up on there and we're contributing, is there a way that we can, as we go past there, to try and straighten the plow out? Is there some way to mitigate it? But if you could just follow up on that request. And then there was a concern, and it might have just been out of courtesy, because quite honestly, in the 25 years I've lived here, the Public Works Department has been courteous to businesses and tried to make arrangements, but to try to help them out. But I had a complaint from a constituent that one of the businesses on Broadway was plowed by city equipment, and apparently that complaint was made. I don't want to name the business or the employee, but the accusation is that the employee was offered some kind of discount or something from the business owner. I have known Public Works to go ahead and help a business out if there was some problem, if there was some issue going on. I don't necessarily have an issue with that, necessarily, depending on whether it's all in the up and up and the department head knows and the policy, rather than an individual employee is gaining some kind of benefit from it. So I bring it up again. I believe that the city manager is already aware of it, and if we could just let me know, or let council know if there was anything untoward about that entire situation. If the employee didn't do anything wrong, then I'm fine with it, but I'm bringing it up as I promised. As to Mr. Margiotta's, one of his several things, I'll start with, well, first of all, with Vicki Hoffmann, I would hope that we are all going to come with a determination to address these infrastructure issues with this budget, and that discussion is going to start on the 25th of March, so that we can start getting these infrastructure issues and the safety of our citizens put forward and what we're going to do, along with the concerns with what Calibri has done. When the citizens can go around and talk to these organizations and we spend this kind of money and they find that kind of, they find them lacking and bring those kind of issues to us, we need to take that serious. We're not going to get things done by throwing $100,000 at something and then not having the work done to the satisfaction of the citizens moving forward. So I'm looking forward to March 25th that we're really going to have a substantive conversation and really set the priorities. And enough said. Mr. Margiotta brought up one of his issues was the $28,000 that was spent, I believe, to an investigator through the city attorney's office that was beyond the $25,000. I would like to do that as a council request to find out what the process and procedures was, why that bypassed the, policy, whether it was RFP'd out, whether, so that we have some information on why that didn't come to council. For Tam Williamson's issue, that is an enforcement of the law. She is correct. That is on the next block over from where I live. It is R1C. It is not apartments. Even if it was considered accessory dwelling, which it is not, we're not enforcing. We need to enforce the law. And we seem to be somewhat hamstrung on this. I don't understand why, that somehow we seem incapable of making this person come into compliance with the law. He's running an apartment building. He is now actively, and has been for some time, actively advertising it as an Airbnb, and now he's advertising it as a boarding house. And Laura Bartnick, Scott Gilbert remembers, would love this entire situation's coming around the other side of the circle, because we seem to know how to enforce it then. And then for Chris Dewis, we need to follow up on the law. We can't just go one time and not have the issues resolved and keep having people come back, because you wouldn't keep coming back if the issue would just get resolved. And so those code enforcement issues need to be followed up on. So if those three things are my city council requests, the $28,000, the enforcement, or why we seem to be incapable of enforcing the issue on Washington, the 4100 block Washington, and then the follow-up for Mr. Dewis's issue in the alley that he brought to us over the last several months. That's all I had. Oh, and one other thing, the EHA meeting, the Englewood Housing Authority meeting, was changed. They do this every year, as the mayor well knows, because she sat on there, and it will be held this coming Wednesday on the 28th. Instead of the first. Usually it is the first Wednesday of the month. And that's all.
Councilmember Cuesta?
Thank you, Mayor. I, too, am going to address 4188 Washington, because I can't understand how this continues to happen. They are advertising on VRBO, Airbnb, Traveling Nurse, Furnished Finder. You can rent it for as short as long as you want. I am, just so that everybody is has somewhat of a grasp on what that poor woman is currently living next to. And if you'll provide me one moment here. Shoot, and I am just about there, pardon me. And these are just reviews, and these are recent reviews. Photos are a bit dated. It's not fancy home or super nice, but it will fit the needs of a big group looking for a place to crash for a couple days. Two more. The property was way better than I could have expected. It was easy to comfortably sleep 9 guys. Another one, perfect place for my bachelorette party weekend. I don't know anybody that would live in an R1C district that would expect this coming through at a regular basis, which seems she's had to put up with this over and over and over again. Again, it seems like you can stay a day, you can stay a month, you can stay as long as you want. She described it as a flop house in her email to us most recently. I won't necessarily repeat that phrase, but I don't know anybody up here who would want to live next to a house similar to that one. I also think that we're soon going to be entering the Airbnb or short-term rental conversation, and I think this does not help the argument. I see things like this, and it immediately puts me off to any such rentals. I will put this back into the hands of staff. I know that we've had this conversation over and over again. She also mentioned that the owner of the property is meeting with the city. I'm curious what conversations are going on there. It seems like she can't seem to get any answers, but the owner of this house that I find to be astoundingly out of compliance seems to be meeting with staff. And this does not seem to be getting resolved.
I'm sure there are more questions. I met with the community development staff today on this issue to get a heads up, just to fill you in. They're meeting with the owner because he lives out of state, and they wanted to meet him face to face to figure out exactly what's going on, to apprise him of the law. So it's not like they're making accommodations. They're gathering the information. The building inspectors have been out. They're actively pursuing it. It certainly goes to the root cause of the short-term rental, which is why our Planning and Zoning Commission is working hard and staff is working hard to come up with some actual enforceable code language for that. It may be clear-cut from it's not clear-cut from a legal issue, but they are actively working on it and trying to solve the issue and figuring out what's going on. And again, I'll treat it as a council request and give you an update and have them right at that. But I did want you to know that they're working very hard to address it.
Duly noted. It seems to me something has to happen sooner than later. This poor woman is dealing with this day in and day out. It seems to be getting worse quicker than it's getting better. And frankly, I think it's making a mockery of the city. I think we're starting to look bad that we just let these things go by, that it looks unenforced, and you can thumb your nose at Englewood, and we'll just let that happen. I have even less sympathy hearing that the guy doesn't even live in the state, yet it's causing such a disruption on the block. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Could I have a clarification for what you said?
Are you finished, member?
I am. Thank you, Mayor.
Would you mind if
I actually don't want this to turn into a topic for an agenda
no,
item.
it's not
So
a topic.
It's
It's
a quick
just
question of
please make. Yes.
If it's a quick question of clarification, go ahead, but I don't want to have another conversation. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
Could you please make sure that they are aware that there are people that live in the house that are residents of the house, several of them. It is not just being used as an Airbnb, but it is also a residence for several families already on top of that.
Duly noted. Thank you.
I'm finished. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. I let you go over like 6 minutes tonight, so I just want to make sure we get things done. Okay, so I have a couple of things that I did not mention. The EAF interview meeting, you all finally did the doodle today. Thank you very much. The only night it looks like all of us can do it is on the 28th, which is next week, Thursday night, 6 to 9. Is that still possible for the city to pull that off with everybody?
Certainly.
The three companies, so is everybody still cleared? I mean, you've all filled it out. Most of you did it today or yesterday, so I'm assuming you've blocked that date. So
I was going to ask you.
Thursday from 6 to 9.
Thank you. Isn't that also the day now that there's a Kmart?
It is, unfortunately.
Scheduled?
It is, unfortunately, but we have got to get this done, so.
Bless you.
Councilmember Barentine?
What is the time of that community meeting?
I don't know.
It's in
I believe it's
email.
6. That just was released today. I'm pretty certain it's 6 p.m. That is a pretty significant conflict, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I can go every single night that you were offered, so if anybody else wants to make a change and say they can come on a night they didn't think they could, Councilmember Martinez?
Are we talking about the 28th? I think there might be a conflict in two ways on that night. Is it the Kmart meeting, the neighborhood redevelopment site meeting, and the flooding meeting?
The flooding meeting's on the 31st.
Oh, 21st, 2 different Thursdays. Okay, sorry.
Shoot. Actually, I had a constituent email.
All right, so this is what we're going to do.
I could do Wednesday instead, and I didn't think I could. I didn't put that down.
I don't know.
Oops.
It is 6 p.m. on 2/28 at Colorado's Finest, that Kmart meeting.
Do you have, Durham City Manager, do you have the list in front of you of the dates?
I do not.
For the doodle now, so far back. The 28th was given to me as the night that all of you, was the only night that all of us could do it. So tomorrow I'm going to send out a quick email. Please check your emails. I know some of you can't check it during the day, that's fine. But by after work, if you can give an answer, we'll try and nail this down then by Thursday morning, or by, even tomorrow night, so.
Mayor, was the other date the 8th of March?
We don't know, that's why.
I think it was the 13th.
I don't have the doodle in front of me.
Oh, I
so
see.
The
I
28th was the only
apologize.
night all of us could do it. And there were several people missing here and there and everywhere. So we'll send it back. We might have to go further, but it just means that this is taking longer for us to go through the process. Last week I had the police, fire, pensions, and the mayor's munch. Nothing to report on most of any other than that I've already told you, but the Metro Mayor's Caucus has pulled a homeless committee together, and I'm going to be meeting with them in the next 2 weeks. We're trying to do a doodle for that too. The policy committee for the Tri-Cities has been meeting, as you know, every month. We had a presentation by the Burn Center last month. We're looking at a possible focus group and person-by-person kind of study to be done in all 3 cities in order to determine what is the status of people who are in homelessness, what are their backgrounds, what kind of services can we help match with that. So hopefully we'll have something that each council will bring before each other to do a joint venture on that and share the costs together. Don't think it would be incredibly expensive, but we need a little bit more data to help better match services. Swedish Hospital just opened a robotics wing. I don't know if anybody went on Friday to that. It is quite incredible. It's got all kinds of, you can have a third hand doing surgery on hearts, and it's really one of the only one in the state, so it's really a cool thing. Last thing I wanted to say was the Citizen of the Year Award. Please keep pushing that out to people and think about others that you want to see nominated for that. It's great to have a great group of nominations and then choose from that. Finally, I just want to say to our city staff, this has been a hard week for a number of reasons, and I know, Dorothy, you were out on vacation, which is probably good, but we all sit up here on a Monday night or Tuesday night, and we get some pretty incredibly negative things said to us. Some of us get phone calls like that as well, and I just am very, very thankful for the way that you handle it, and if there are ways in which I can help during a meeting when you're being called names. I think tonight one of you was called a name, and I just let it go, but I know you're pretty tough. But I just appreciate both of you that are sitting there and our police that are here and the folks who present and the continuous patience that they have in the face of not very adult ways of dealing with conflict. Certainly not what I would have in my home and hope to, encourage people to act like, but that's the world we live in. And I just really want your staff to know I truly appreciate their willingness to keep serving here in the face of all kinds of things.
Thank you, and I'll be sure to share that with staff.
Thank you. And then next up is City Manager's report.
I have an issue before you. I know it's late. I will ask your indulgence because I'm something at a loss about the best way to proceed. So what I'm asking for you tonight is a little guidance. I've had an unsolicited proposal from a group who has indicated willingness to purchase Broken T Golf Course from the city. I won't share details that they gave me. I've certainly not shared information that isn't available publicly in the budget about Broken T. They're very interested in pursuing this, and I wanted your opinion about whether that's something you'd like to discuss at a study session. Would you like to talk about more details on that in an executive session? Do you simply not want to entertain this at all? Do you want to take it to Parks and Rec Commission? We can talk about it again, but I felt obligated to share this offer with you.
So are you asking us tonight to give you some consensus on this, or?
You can give it tonight. We can talk about it in another time during City Manager's Choice, or I could put it on a study session agenda to talk about that. I honestly didn't know how to proceed.
I would recommend that we put it on a study session. Okay. Councilmember Barentine and Martinez have lit up their lights. I'm going to give everybody like a minute. Councilmember Martinez.
Absolutely, we should go for. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We should go for a study session.
Okay.
I mean, anytime that we have just unsolicited proposals, when nobody even knew it was up for sale, including this council, we probably need to have a discussion about it.
Well, it's not up for sale.
It's an unsolicited proposal. Let's not put words in people's mouths.
I
Councilmember Martinez.
I did not put any words in anybody's mouth, and nor did I mean to misspeak if you thought that misrepresented it, but I don't appreciate the mayor jumping on me like that. That's not what was intended.
Point of clarification, it is not for sale. It was an unsolicited proposal.
Right.
Somebody wants to
That's what
buy
I said.
it, that's fine. I think we should entertain it in a study session, but I would also like the Parks and Rec Commission to think about it as well.
Councilmember Quest, I think I may have pushed your button.
I'll pass. You know, it predates my time on council, but I was spending a fair amount of time in the audience. And the last time this came up, I thought there was going to be a riot with all the golfers we had present. So I don't think it's a very popular idea in the neighborhood. I don't have any appetite to revisit it. That was very recent. I'd say within the past years that discussion happened. And again, one of the most unpopular things I've seen in this room, truth be told. So I have no appetite to revisit that. Thank you.
All right, I think we've got enough consensus to bring it to a study session.
One quick question. Would you prefer that this go to the Parks and Rec Commission first and then come back for study session?
Councilmember Barentine?
No, because I think then we're giving the impression that it's for sale. And we're having a board make a decision before the council has discussed anything about it. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
All right.
And I will do that. The only other thing that I wanted, and you will get another doodle poll because I know you enjoy those so much. We've started work with GovHR, the executive recruiter firm. They would like to meet individually in person with each member of council on March 4th or 5th for 30 minutes each. We're hoping that there's some availability for staff. We know that March 4th is a council night and could be busy, but they really want to get started on this. So I just wanted to give you a heads up to look for that and see if we can start this process of having the recruiter talk to each of you.
Thank you. I think you were given one no on the Parks and Rec thing, but several of us want the Parks and Rec, I think, to at least know about what's going on and not have them left out. I think it's fine to do it, concurrently even, but I think the council needs to probably be weighing in.
We'll certainly do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Mayor?
Well, I wanted to weigh in on that too. I think council should discuss this and decide, because if we decide not to move forward with it, then.
Councilmember Sierra.
I was going to say, so just trying to think about the entire process. If we bring it to a study session, I don't want to bring up what the price is that they're offering.
You're willing to go
into
into...
I don't know, there's so much there. I think we want to talk about whether or not it should be up for sale or that type of thing, so.
We won't go into a negotiating session. We can just talk about the subject in general. Thank you.
Exactly.
All right, City Attorney.
No report.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Didn't have to use that tonight.